Okay, so let's take a look at ethics, part 3. So in ethics part 1 and 2, we looked at some of the basic definitions of ethics, and we looked at moral relativism as a position in ethics. So ethics, if you ever take a classical philosophy course, ethics will usually be a topic of discussion. It's generally a topic of philosophical discussion at a casual level, like what's the good thing to do or what's the right thing to do. But certainly a lot of major philosophers have put a lot of effort into sort of the study of ethics. It's part of the TOK course. TOK not being a philosophy course per se, it's more about knowledge, so it's more of an epistemology course. But the fact that ethics is in there, I still think is a good thing for students to study, especially at the grade 12 level. It's the kind of mature discussion that I think only a grade 12 IB student can really contribute to. Okay, so today we're going to look at another theory of ethics, a very simple one called the self-interest theory. Okay? And it's exactly as you'd imagine it is described as. The self-interest theory basically says that when we act, we always act selfishly. Okay? That our motives are selfish. Okay? That selfish behavior is the motivating factor behind our decision making. Okay? That even if there was objective moral values, like this is in fact the right thing to do, we are incapable of ever actually achieving those because we will always be looking out for our own interests. Okay? Now, this is a controversial theory, absolutely, but I'm going to look at 4 sort of supporting arguments behind the self-interest theory. And we'll also look at sort of the downsides of those arguments as well. Okay, so the first argument is the definitional argument. So this is basically just looking at the defining sort of terms in the self-interest theory. So basically what it says is that we always want to do what we want to do. Okay, otherwise you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it unless you wanted to do it. Okay? So what's the objection to that? Well, the objection is, like being here right now, I don't want to be in TOK at 7:30 in the morning, so why am I here? Okay? So here's an example. You're given a choice. Should I stay at home and play video games all afternoon, or should I take walks out for lunch? There's a choice, right? Now, you would prefer to stay home and play video games all afternoon. That would be your choice in terms of what you feel you'd like to do. So if you do that, are you acting in self-interest? Or if you take walks out for lunch, are you contradicting the theory? Well, we have to think a little bit deeper than that, okay? You might be in fact feeling guilt because walks has presented you with the life-changing subject known as theory of knowledge. And if I didn't take him out for lunch, I would feel incredible guilt that I didn't do that. Instead, I stayed home and played video games. So the fact that I would take walks out for lunch actually is the thing that I want to do to alleviate the guilt so I do not feel guilty. Similarly, you guys are sitting here today because you don't want to not go to TOK and maybe get an absence or maybe miss out on a mark here or there. So in fact, you are acting selfishly because you are thinking about yourself. That's what the theory would say. That even though it seems like we're doing something that we don't want to do, we are actually acting selfishly. And what that then says is that there is no altruistic behavior, okay? So this guilt is what maybe drives us to alleviate that guilt and therefore act in that self-interest or that selfish way. So according to self-interest theory, if we believe this argument, there is no such thing as true altruism. There is no acting for others. We are always acting for ourselves. What a depressing thought here on Monday morning, that you guys are all here right now. And me, I'm here teaching you guys, not because I want you guys to learn TOK, but because I'm acting selfishly, okay? But that's okay, because you guys are acting selfishly as well, being here. So this could extend. So let's compare Donald Trump to Mother Teresa, okay? So Mother Teresa, who dedicated her life to perhaps helping the poor, okay, would hate what Donald Trump's pursuits of his life would have been, which would be to pursue wealth, okay? So Donald Trump dedicated his life to making money, and Mother Teresa dedicated her life to helping others. But according to self-interest theory, they were both just doing what they wanted to do for themselves. They were acting selfishly. What this also does is it places them philosophically at the same sort of point that they are both sort of equally good because they are both acting within the self-interest theory. Now, here's some of the criticisms of the self-interest theory. If everyone's acting selfishly, then nobody's acting selfishly. The word selfish doesn't apply anymore because we are just all acting in that way. It's very similar to when we looked at the art unit. If everything is art, then nothing is art, right? So if we praise someone for doing something nice, we're not praising them, we're acting selfishly. We're thinking, ooh, look how good I am at giving out compliments, so I'm going to give you another compliment. Your hair looks nice today. What a great person I am. It's all based on that selfishness. So really, it kind of loses its edge if we are all acting in this way. So there's one of the criticisms of the self-interest theory. Okay, but now let's put another supporting argument for it, another argument to support the self-interest theory, called the evolutionary argument. Okay? So this is based on the theory of evolution. And what it says is that we have evolved to be selfish creatures, that it's in our best interest to be selfish, that it will help us survive to be selfish, that this idea of we're constantly looking out for number one, looking out for ourselves, has actually been a good survival mechanism that we have evolved into using. Okay? So according to this view, even complex social dynamics, like say capitalism, is a more successful political system than say socialism because it feeds into our own natural self-interest theory. So that because we are naturally selfish creatures, capitalism works better than socialism at a larger plane. So again, this might have some sort of argument behind it, right? That, for example, a creature that evolved to not look out for itself might die out, right? So it's crossing the street, it's looking, hey, where's everybody else? I gotta check as I'm crossing the street, and pow, gets hit by a car because it wasn't looking out for itself. As a little baby, it wasn't looking out for itself. It was looking out for others, and as a result, like got eaten by a lion because it wasn't watching out. That sort of survival mechanism to be looking out for ourselves could be argued as a good trait from survival perspective. That idea is a evolutionarily beneficial thing. And as a result, our whole society maybe is built up from that basic concept. Okay, criticisms of that though. There's a lot of evidence to say that there is actually real empathy and real altruism out there, even in creatures beyond humans, okay? For example, they did experiments with monkeys, where if the monkeys pulled a lever, they'd get food. But when they pulled the lever, one of the other monkeys would receive a painful electric shock. Now, if that's true, then monkeys who would always be looking out for themselves wouldn't care. They would just pull the lever and get the food, and they wouldn't care about the other monkeys getting a shock. But in reality, when this experiment went down, the monkeys would eventually stop pulling the lever because it would seem like they felt like they were looking out for the other monkeys. They did not want the other monkeys to feel that pain. Okay? So this idea, again, even in babies, okay, they've seen this behavior where if a baby sees its mother crying, the baby might console the mother by, for example, handing the mother its favorite toy or a favorite blanket or even the bottle that the baby is feeling a empathetic nature towards its own mother, okay? And it seems like this is part of our biology. I mean, for any of us who have pets like dogs or cats, and you've often felt really bad, like say you were sick or something emotionally disturbing happened to you and maybe you were crying or you were just very upset, often it seems like your pets kind of know that and they seem to come and console you. Has anyone had that experience or is it just me? Okay. So it seems like there seems to be this sort of empathetic nature in all of us and in other biological creatures. This would contradict the self-interest theory. This would say, well, wait a minute. Those animals aren't acting selfishly. They're acting empathetically. So it seems to criticize the self-interest theory. Now, you could dig deeper into the self-interest theory and say, well, yeah, but they're still just acting selfishly because even though they're consoling you, they're doing that so that they feel good about themselves that they acted in that way. But again, that maybe starts to fall apart a little bit. But this is the theory, right? This idea that we, as creatures, always act selfishly. Okay. The third argument is called the hidden benefits argument. With this argument, what it says is that we feel like we are going to get benefits from acting in ways that kind of seem like give ourselves a positive image, okay? So this idea that if we act in a way that makes us look like a good person, that there's benefits to that. That our reputation says, hey, I'm a nice person. 2, maybe we could down the line rely on somebody else that we've been nice to get a favor from, okay? This is extended into things like religious aspects where people feel that they will get their, so my grandmother used to say, you'll get your rewards in heaven, right, for acting certain ways, right? So this idea that there are hidden benefits to so-called good behavior. This doesn't mean that we're doing it for the other person. We're doing it because we expect hidden benefits to come for us down the line. That we kind of expect that somehow this will get paid back. That there'll be a payback for this behavior somewhere down the line. Okay? Hi.
Substitute for rowing?
Yeah, you can just cut through that way. Right? Okay. So if we, for example, consider a mother's love for her child, right? This could be the ultimate sign of altruism, that this mother is giving, for example, her life for her child. But the self-interest theory would say, well, wait a minute, the mother doesn't love all children, she just loves her child, and therefore her love is interested just on her own sort of personal level. So again, this is the argument, this sort of argument towards self-interest theory. Even heroes, so-called sort of people who go beyond, like run into a burning building, dive into the water. We had someone just in the last few years, I think it was Clara Hughes' sister's car went over a bridge and landed in the water. Did you guys hear about this in the spring? And the person was trapped, and a person stopped their car and dove in and saved this person. And as a result, like an incredibly heroic act. But even that could be attacked from the hidden benefits argument, saying that this person was just doing that heroic behavior to receive the fame. I mean, we all heard about this person. They were on the news. They received like the Order of Canada and stuff like that. So that they did this behavior to receive those benefits down the line. That's the argument, okay? Now let's criticize it. This expectation of getting paid back isn't always true, okay? There are lots of situations where people do things knowing they will never get paid back, okay? You could leave a tip at a restaurant. Like say you're on a trip somewhere through the southern United States, and you go to a restaurant and you just decide to leave a tip. You know you're never ever probably in your life, actually there's no probably about it, you will never ever in your life return to that restaurant. So why did you leave a tip? Okay? What will be the payback there? There will be no payback. That person who you gave a tip to will never see you again in their lives, yet you leave the tip, right? So this kind of criticizes the argument a little bit, okay? Now again, true people who believe in the self-interest theory would dig in deeper. They'd say, well, yes, but that feeling that you at least did something good, that was the hidden benefit. They would also argue that this person maybe was a fairly religious person and felt that the reward for this will be paid back in their next life and things like that, okay? But again, there's this back and forth on the self-interest theory. Is it an actual theory or is it something to be criticized? Last year I started mentioning the word axiom, and again I want to kind of bring it up this year. We're going to talk about it more so in our next 2 units. Do you guys remember what the word axiom means? What is an axiom? An axiom is like a base starting point, right? It's like what everything is built up from. So we're going to talk about the axioms of mathematics, for example. Something that maybe your math studies hasn't really gotten into. Maybe they have, maybe not, okay? Like, for example, the basis of multiplication is addition, right? Like, multiplication is essentially repetitive addition, right? That's what multiplication is. So addition is an axiom for multiplication. And then you could talk about powers, right? Like x to the power of 5. Well, that's kind of a based on multiplication, which is based on addition. So axioms are essentially building blocks. So this is a quote from Einstein, that ethical axioms are not tested the same way scientific axioms are tested on. Right? So scientific axioms are basic building blocks of science and scientific theories. Truth is what stands the test of experience. Okay. The final argument is the fear of punishment argument. It's sort of the flip side of the hidden benefits argument. And again, it kind of has a lot of religious roots as well, or religious beginnings. So this is the idea that we do good things because if we don't, we're going to be punished. Now that might be the motivating factor why you guys are here today, is that your fear of punishment. What if I get caught? What if I'm found out doing this wrong thing? That this fear of punishment might be a deterrent for behaviors that we would consider to be unethical, okay? Now, again, this is what a lot of our law is based on sometimes. Is law based on punishment law, or is it based on retribution, or pardon me, on restitution or things like that? Like, why do we put people in prisons? Is it to reform them, or is it to punish them, right? So this is a philosophical, ethical argument that extends beyond just the realms of a TOK classroom, but has real-life sort of implications, especially in things like law. So with the fear of punishment argument, again, there are criticisms for this, right? That people would say, well, just a minute. Just because I was going to get punished is not why I did this, okay? For example, some might say that Mother Teresa didn't do what she did because she was afraid of punishment. She did it for altruistic reasons, okay? Now, at the same time, you could criticize that. You could say, well, just a minute. Mother Teresa was a religious person. And what do the tenements of her religion say? That if she doesn't act in a good way, is there a punishment there? A lot of religions have that built into them, this idea of a hell that goes with a heaven, so that we're afraid of that punishment in some ways, okay? It's a very basic concept. Even when you were little children, there was this idea of do good things, you get a reward, do bad things, you might get a punishment. And that this might shape your behavior, okay? It's even basic in psychology. This idea of, well, I'll give the rat a piece of cheese if he goes this way down the maze, and I will shock the rat with an electrical shock if they go this way down the maze. That the rat will learn through their behavior to seek reward and fear punishment. Okay? So big philosophical question to wrap up today. Do you think that people are basically good, that when you're born, you are born good, and that society kind of turns people bad? Or are some people basically born bad, okay? And that society needs to keep them from being bad by using things like law and social pressure and stuff like that. So let's break it down to the simplest question. Do you think people are basically born good or born bad? Very base question. Do you think people are born with the ability to speak at 7:30 in the morning or not born with the ability to speak at 7:30 in the morning? I'm going to argue the second one. Nobody has an argument. You guys just want to listen today. All right, let's listen. I'm going to play you a little video then to start. Have I played this for you guys already, the Harvard professor video?